Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Kai and today I have for you a super fun kind of like dessert cafe themed set. This is largely inspired by the Mayo Butter collection. I'd been wanting to do some cutesy food nails for a while and I thought this was the perfect opportunity to match the theming of the collection with a little design. And you know I love 3D nail art, so I had to do some 3D desserts. So this set is all about sweets and treats that you would get at like a cafe. So if that sounds good to you, please stay tuned to see my entire process of how I made these press-on nails from start to finish. Thank you so much to everybody who's watching. I hope you consider subscribing, and without too much more chit chat, let's get into the video. So here is my design. It's very food themed if you can't tell. It was largely inspired by this set of polishes here, this one and this one. These are the Mayo Butter collection. I have recently received them from Sweetie Nail Supply. Huge shout out to Sweetie Nail Supply. Thank you so much for sending them to me as PR. So they were gifted, but I had every intention of buying them myself because look at how cute these pastel colors are. They're just such an interesting mix for spring, and then they also come with two textured gels, like a strawberry gel and a sprinkles gel. And so I wanted to honor that and do some food themed nails. So here is the design. I wanted to use the sprinkles to make like a cupcake themed nail with some colored pencil drawn art. I hadn't done any colored pencil art on this channel yet, and so I really wanted to experiment with that for this set. So a lot of the like background details here, the stripes, the little scallops on the lace, the hearts, and some of this theme pattern are all going to be colored pencil art. Same with the toast. The toast will be colored pencil art along with the cupcake. And then these three nails will be 3D elements using, of course, my favorite Crisp clays. Now these are the jelly clays because I thought I was going to use these ones, but I ended up using her classics. I love Crisania Neri. She does amazing work. And I actually am so excited to announce that I now have an affiliate code with her. I've bought stuff from almost everything that she's released so far. She does mostly 3D nail art products and then also some filming equipment. So I recently purchased her Cris lens. I haven't experimented with it yet, but I'm super excited to. So yeah, you can now use GETPRESSED to save 10% from Crisania Neri products. But anyways, this was the final design with all sorts of cutesy food things. So I have like a bear-shaped pancake with that strawberry jam gel on top, a cupcake, a little melon bread, one of those cute like glass bottles of strawberry milk. That's what I was going for with this one. And then a drawn piece of toast with a little pat of butter on it. Because of course I'm using the butter set, I have to use some butter. So yeah, all of these food pictures I got from Pinterest and or Instagram, just to point out some artists. This one here largely inspired the little like strawberry milk jar. It's Sweetie, I think, like Sue but Sweetie. It's a really cute play on words. That's her handle. And then also down here, Jenny illustrations with this really cute little carton of strawberry milk. Now the reason these are cartons and the reason these foods don't actually match up with what I ended up doing here is because this is actually the second full design I made for this set. My original design I will show you. So with this one, I had attempted to do a set that matched like the background color of the nail to the actual 3D elements. So of course I have like the little carton of strawberry milk on the pink nail, the melon bread on the green nail. This was going to be like a little macaron on a white and red nail, cake and butterfly PT for the blue nail. And I just felt like it looked in some ways too much of the same color. Like the blue was on the blue, the green was on the green. And I really wanted to push myself and experiment with doing different colors combined on nails and doing a set of like all different colored nails. And so that's why I went back in and I totally redid the set and came up with this design. And honestly, I'm super happy I pushed myself and made something else because to me this looks a lot more cohesive, a lot better than the previous design. But yeah, let me know, do you like this design better than the other, or do you like the other? I'm always up for constructive criticism on this channel. I really love growing my content and experimenting with new things. So if anybody ever has again, constructive criticism or things that they would like to mention, please feel free to leave it in the comments below. And thank you to everyone who's just here, who watches, and who enjoys my content. I honestly can't believe I get to do this on a weekly basis. It's just very fulfilling to me to be able to do something creative and share it with others. So I appreciate it. My 5,000 subscriber giveaway announcement will be in its own separate community post. So keep an eye out for that sometime today to see if you've won, if you entered. And yeah, just I guess without too much more chit chat, let's go ahead and get to the supply list. So here are all of the materials I used for this project. I'll admit it is a pretty materials heavy set. I used a bunch of my classic Cris clays. So I used the white, this is the yellow. I have the pink nude and the light pink, both of which I used a little bit of. And then I needed the green and the brown to do the melon bun that's on the middle finger. And then what's really exciting is she came out recently with a clear 3D gel, and I had never tried it before. I ordered it shortly before this video, and so I was super excited to use it for the first time. It's just a non-stick 3D sculpting gel. It has kind of like that bouncy finish to it once it's cured, and it is super clear. For other supplies, I will be using my Divock textured canvas gel in white. I really actually need to do a refill of this because I've been using it so much lately. I'm running out. And then to affix the charms, I planned on using the IB Fix gel. I don't like the tube. I do like the formula. The tube's just a little messy, but that's okay. The doughy marbly is going to be for the gingham patterns and the lace. I usually pull out a base gel. This time I figured since I'm using Mayo polishes, I might as well use the Mayo long base. This is just to smooth out the surface for nail art. And then for the colored pencil art, I am going to be using the Yummy Art Gel. This is a mattifying top coat specifically for colored pencil art and that sort of thing. For another base color, I pulled out my Milky White. This is the Mayo Snow White from the Dowa collection. And I did want a regular matte top coat, and so I have here the Yogurt Gel Matte Top Coat. It is a very thin consistency, which I wanted to not add too much bulk. Of course, I use the Après Tip Primer for my press-ons. I do really like this primer, but please make sure you're only using it on tips as that is its intended use. And then last but not least, I needed a top coat, and I absolutely love the Mayo Glass Top as like a really nice, thin finishing top coat. Then for the star of the show, we have the Mayo Butter collection. This is the one I mentioned earlier in the video. It was sent to me as PR. Thank you again to Sweetie Nail Supply because I had been eyeing this set for weeks before I had planned on purchasing it, and I just so happened to get an email that day about new PR options available, and so I was so lucky to be able to snag this one. It is adorable. I am a sucker for fun packaging, and I think the whole theming of this set, the colors that are involved, and the packaging itself is just so cute. And it's very springy without feeling like your typical spring set. Speaking of spring, I know it's actually been a while, so I took last week off as a break because, I'll be honest, I was going through a little bit of burnout. These videos take me anywhere from 15 to 25, maybe even 30 hours sometimes to make from start to finish when it comes to doing all the filming and the designing and the actual painting of the nails. I had 12 hours of footage from just this one set with all of the testing that I had done. So yes, this is my first video back after a week break. I really appreciate everybody who still watches, even if I don't upload on a regular schedule all of the time. This video itself will be late, but I do have spring break coming up here, not next week, but the week after, and so I'm really excited to get some time to relax, to do some more nail art because I love nail art. It really is like my happy place. It's something that I really enjoy doing, and so I'm excited to be able to do more of it with more time. And here are the swatches for this collection. So cute. Like I said, it feels like spring, but it's not your typical spring colors. I think it's that jelly red. that really stands out. I love it and I'm so excited to use it. I'll also be using my MPA art palette for the painted details. I really do love this palette and the variety of colors it comes with. It's just so handy. For colored pencils, you really can use any ones that you have or that you have access to. I just happen to have these nice artist ones because I used to do traditional art. And then these are soft pastels that I actually picked up. I think it was on recommendation from Dreamy Little Nails. She uses them to do like her blended ombres and her aura nails. I'm going to use them to color my baked goods. And then for tools, there are a couple of things that you will want to have on hand. Number one, a fluffy brush if you're going to be doing any sort of like powder blending. This is just a really cheap Wet n Wild makeup brush, an eyeshadow brush. It just needs to have a nice soft fluffy head to it. I think I got this at the dollar store. I used a couple liners. These are some of my favorites. It's the Sweetie Nail Supply Liner 2 and the Diami number 10, the short liner. They are both super great for doing really fine detailed work. And then for sculpting, I love the Crisania sculpting tools. They're really small, smaller than normal silicone sculpting tools, and a little bit more rounded. And then you do want some sort of like pointed art brush for doing some of the larger details. This is the Izemi brush number 600. And then I love using a palette knife for the textured gels. So this is just like an artist palette knife. I think I got it at Michael's. For tips, I'll be using the natural round medium from Apres. I get the mini packs because I'm just making nails for myself. And this is everything I will be using for this set. I know it does feel like a lot. A lot of these things you could substitute though for others that you might have already on hand. So I have my tips already prepped and on my gorgeous stand that Tamara from The Devil Wears Press-Ons made. Check out her channel if you are interested in ordering a custom nail stand. And just a little disclaimer for all of the DIYers at home, please make sure you're doing research on the products you're using. If you are going to come in contact with uncured gel, I recommend that you wear nitrile gloves as much as possible to avoid possible skin exposure and the development of an allergy. Gel is perfectly safe to use as long as you're doing your research and are just careful about your exposure. Alrighty, so I'm going to start with base colors. These are all going to be colors from the Mayo Butter collection, except for the white from the Dowa set. This one here is a gorgeous like sky blue. It's the perfect mix between like a periwinkle and an aqua. It's just a very, very true sky blue. These are syrup gels, so they are semi-sheer. You do need to build them up if you want like really strong color payoff. Otherwise, you could do a really light sheer coat. That is something that I really love about syrup gels. In particular, Korean branded syrup gels are some of my favorite to work with. They're often just really smooth and have nice even color payoff for great layering. This pink is the perfect like baby pink. I honestly could not be happier about the colors in this set. I think that they are just sheer enough to give you that sort of subtle look if you only wanted to do maybe one or two coats, but you can also build them up to get really nice vivid color payoff with some thicker layers, or in this case, I did 3 layers of each polish on each nail, and I think they just are stunning in terms of the colors and the harmony between the colors. Honestly, Yoga Mayo are probably my second favorite Korean brand, my first being Divok. I just really love the different collections they release. They're always so fun and interesting, so I highly recommend checking them out. For the middle finger, I had thought I wanted to do the butter color, the butter yellow, except for when I went to actually do the colored pencil pattern on top of it, I felt like the yellow background was drawing away from the color of the colored pencils, and so I end up going back in with that Snow White from the Dowa collection, but I did want to leave in the footage of the butter color just so you can see how nice and creamy of a yellow it is. This Snow White color is also a really nice creamy formula. However, I will say this one is probably a bit more on the sheer side. I think I actually did 4 total coats for this nail to get the buildup that I wanted. So on the plus side, if you're looking for a really sheer white color, this is the one for you. If you're looking for something with a little bit more pigment, you can build this one up, but I would also recommend the Diva Milkus color. I find that one to be just a little bit more pigmented. And then this green here, which is melon butter, is so perfect for the name. It looks exactly like a juicy piece of honeydew or muskmelon. It just looks so refreshing. It reminds me of like summer and fruits in the summer. Weird little fact about me, I'm a really big fruit fan, and by that I mean I love trying new fruits. I think maybe it's because I grew up in Alaska, and so we didn't really have access to a lot of different kinds of fresh fruit. Like, don't get me wrong, we had apples, bananas, pears, your normal kind of like northern fruits. But when I moved to Florida and I started getting to try different tropical fruits, or if I'd go on vacations as a kid to other states and I was able to experience other fruits, it just gave me this kind of like love of trying different fruits. I don't know what it is. I just think it's so fun and a great way to learn a little bit about some of the places you visit. I'm really excited to do more traveling in the future, and food for me is a huge part of traveling. I love trying different things from different cultures, especially the sweet things, which is why I think this set is so very much like dessert coated. But here are all of the base colors laid out, and now on to the fun part of adding the patterns with colored pencil art. So I'm wiping off the tacky layer for each nail because you want a nice clean surface, especially for this next step, which is where I'm going to take the doughy marbly. This is an ink set. You really have to shake it up good before using it. And I'm painting on just a few stripes horizontally, and then I'll be crossing over a couple stripes vertically to make a really fun like plaid gingham pattern. I love the effect the inks have because when they dry, a lot of the pigment pools around the edges of whatever area you've painted on, so it gives it almost like a cool outlined look. You do just want to make sure that you're being very quick with this because the ink does dry down really fast, and if you have a lot of the ink concentrated in an area, it's going to dry unevenly. So you'll see me going back in and kind of like manipulating the ink a little bit to make sure it's not pooling all in one specific area. This does take some getting used to working with inks, and if you do mess up, you can honestly just wipe it away with a little bit of alcohol. This was honestly probably my third or fourth time trying to get these lines pretty even and straight. So yes, alcohol is going to be your best friend when working with these sorts of art inks. But once you have your pattern the way you like it, I'm going to go in and top it off with the Ginny Mayo Yummy Top Coat. This is that art matte gel, and what it does is it creates an ultra smooth matte surface that is perfect for grabbing onto colored pencils. And I've also tested it with chrome powder, and it does a really good job of isolating chrome. It is a wipe top coat though, so once you cure it fully, you do want to wipe it down with some gel cleanser. Here I am going in with my colored pencil, and I thought initially I had wanted to do like a stripe down the middle of the stripes I'd already made, but then I felt like it covered up too much of the blue. So the good news is you can actually just wipe away the colored pencil with more gel cleanser, some isopropyl alcohol on a little lint-free wipe, and then you can go back in and redo the pattern however many times you'd like, really. I redid this a few times, and so it was really nice to be able to just wipe it away and start over. But I finally settled on this pattern where it's just a single line going through horizontally. That way you can still see a lot of that gorgeous blue color underneath. For the pointer finger, I am going to be drawing on a little cupcake with my colored pencil, so I'm using that same Yummy Matte Top Gel and painting over the whole nail, fully curing it, and then wiping off the tacky layer. I'm really trying to get just a thin coat on here, so you might notice that my brush is pretty perpendicular to the nail. That way I'm kind of like wiping off some of the excess as I paint. I just didn't want the nail to be too bulky because I knew that I still had a bunch of art layers to add to this. So I started with a blue cupcake liner, and I'm just making kind of the general outline before filling it in. I end up kind of redoing this portion though because the blue that I picked was, I thought, just a little bit too dark for the set. I wanted a blue that was a little bit lighter, but I went ahead and moved on to doing the actual cupcake, and I'm just painting on, or I guess drawing on, a little bit of a brown top And then I'm lightening that color up with some white. I do really like these colored pencils. I know this is a nail art video and not like a traditional art video, but if you are into traditional art, highly recommend Polychromos. They are oil-based rather than wax-based, and so they blend super nicely. However, they are quite expensive, so these were actually a birthday gift, I believe, from honestly like a decade ago. So another thing about them is that they last. I didn't use them super often, so they're still in pristine condition, and I'll probably keep them for another decade. So after finishing the cupcake portion, I did wipe off the liner with just some isopropyl alcohol on a little lint-free wipe. And I went in and did a white cupcake liner instead and added some blue accents to bring in that blue color. And I do think I like this a lot better. It just fits a bit more with the color theming of the design as a whole. And then I actually went back over the blue with the white just to soften that color up even more. For the middle finger, after applying that matte top coat, I am going to go in with a couple of colors from the Prismacolor collection. I dug out this one because it has a lot more pastels. I believe it's the botanical set of Prismacolors. And so I went in with the kind of like periwinkle blue and the light pink to match the other nails. And I just did some stripes, some diagonal stripes. I wanted the 3D elements to really pop, and so I left the backgrounds pretty bare, but I still wanted some sort of pattern to fit kind of like the fun and playful mood that I was trying to create with this set. So I did the pink and blue lines. The pink ones are slightly thicker just for a little bit of variation. Honestly, working on this matte top with the colored pencils was so easy. I know there are some artists who work pretty solely in colored pencils for doing their painted nail art, and I might give that a try. For the ring finger, I'm going back in with the doughy marbly. This time I'm painting one stripe up close by the nail bed, and then I'll do one more vertical stripe crossing over this one on the left side of the nail. For this design, I'm planning on making them look like pieces of scalloped lace ribbon, something cute and dainty like that. And so I matte top coat over the two lines that I painted, and then I'm going to go in with that white colored pencil, and I'm just drawing in the scallops. This was a super easy process, and I do really like how it turned out. I think in the future I might try to do like 2 layers of the colored pencil. It wasn't as vivid as I wanted it. It wasn't as opaque as I'd wanted, but overall I am really pleased with how they turned out. And this was kind of my first time experimenting with this design and this technique, and so overall I am pretty pleased. I'm working on being less of a perfectionist. I tend to be way too harsh on myself in terms of trying new things, and so I'm kind of just attempting to let myself go with the flow a little bit more. And even with me trying to not be too much of a perfectionist, I had 12 hours of footage for the set spread out over the week, so yeah, I definitely need to work on just kind of like getting things finished and not being too nitpicky about them. But for the pinky, I am drawing on a cute little piece of toast. This was just so adorable to me. I don't know why. I think it's just because I like little things. So I also drew on in the background just some little red hearts. I wanted to bring in a deeper red color to match the deeper red of the jelly polish that we'll be using later on in the design. Each nail should have some element from one of the other nails. That way everything feels cohesive, despite them all being different colors, different textures. I try to always incorporate at least one element from 1 or 2 other nails into each nail. That way everything looks like it flows well. And now that all of the colored pencil art is done, I'm just dusting off any excess sort of pigment that might have been stuck to the nail. And I will be going in and sealing that all in with a top coat. So my top coat of choice is the Mayo Glass Top. I mentioned this before, but it's a really nice thin consistency, so I love using this one when I'm trying to not add much bulk to what is already quite a layered design. For the pointer finger, before sealing everything in, I go in with the Yogo Mayo number 8 from the collection. It is this really fun sprinkle gel. It's supposed to mimic the look of rainbow sprinkles, so it has these little pieces of, I don't know if it's like a thicker paper or what exactly the material is, but they do really look like the sprinkles inside of a confetti cake. And so I painted that around the cupcake. It is not a non-wipe, so I did need to go in and just top everything off to make sure that it was all nice and sealed in. And I topped off every nail, making sure to really get around those edges. The last thing I paint on a nail when I'm top coating is actually the edges, and really the purpose of that is to make sure that they are covered and your art is sealed in, but also because sometimes if I'm painting on with a thinner gel or a thicker layer, it can pool around those edges. So just swiping around each edge as the last step is a way to also pick up any sort of excess polish that might be pooling, along with turning the nail upside down right before curing to ensure that if there is polish pooling, it does so at the apex. And now for my favorite part, which is 3D nail art. I'll be using my Cris clays for this. So I'm starting off with the teddy bear pancake on the thumbnail. This is actually my second time making this charm. You'll notice the surface of the nail here looks buffed, and that's because I did a whole nother charm. I hated it and I took it off and I'm redoing it now. Ultimately, I still think I could have shaped this bear a little bit better. I think the head could have been more oval and a bit more squat than like a perfect circle that I have here. And I would have made the ears slightly smaller. But again, I'm trying to live with the imperfections, and just get to a point where I have finished something and can be proud of it, despite the fact that I would have made changes if I had more time, because this really is a learning process for me as well. Often I'm experimenting with these designs that I film for you all, and I film them because it actually helps me in the future. If I try to recreate them, I can go back and look at the exact steps I took to get to the end result. But here was my inspo for these teddy bear pancakes. So I'm just adding on the ears separately, taking a brush wet with a bit of isopropyl alcohol to blend those clays together. And then I'll be painting over it with the milk butter color. It's like a really nice sort of pale yellow that felt perfect for pancake batter. I was shooting for that look that pancakes get when the top and bottom surface are nice and browned, but then you have the edges that are still kind of like that milky pancake batter color because they haven't had contact with the pan. And so I'm painting that all over the nail. And then to achieve that browned look, I will be pulling out those colored pastels, the soft pastels. I haven't experimented much with this technique. Again, I think I just saw it on Dreamy Little Nails, but it seemed cheaper than buying a bunch of different pigment palettes. So I'm starting with the Yogurt Nail Korea Matte Top Coat, and I'm just going over the Pancake Bear just to give myself a nice matte surface for the powder to stick to. And then I'm taking that makeup brush and I am just pretty vigorously scrubbing it into the chalks that I wanted to use. I found that I did get a little bit of pigment off with this method, but what worked really well was actually taking the soft pastels and scribbling them on a little sheet of paper to generate some excess dust. And then I would go in with the brush and swirl it around, mix up the colors, and that gave me a lot more pigment to play with. This is quite the messy process though, I will say, so just be prepared to do some cleanup. And it wasn't like the smoothest surface, I think, that I was working on because I was attempting to do a really thin layer of the yogurt matte gel. There are some brush streaks that were left in the surface, which affected how this powder went on. So I'll have to do some experimenting. I do want to continue trying to use these for like the aura or the ombre look because I think they would just be really handy to have available and much cheaper again than like the pigment powders, but we'll see. And I did want it to have a nice matte finish, so I topped it off with the Yogurt Nail Korea Matte Top Coat. And my camera died, so I didn't get the footage, but I did have to go around the edges and clean up extra pigment on the nail. But it also gave me a chance to clean up the actual edge of the charm and create that uncooked batter look. And then don't forget to clean off your brush if you're using pigments, just to avoid contamination. On top of the pancake, I'm just painting on a pretty thick layer of that strawberry jam polish, and it just gives it the perfect effect. I absolutely love textured gels. I love fun sort of gels that have embeds in them. I got the Mayo Peach collection before just because of the Peach Fuzz textured gel, and this one also does not disappoint. On to the 3D elements for the middle finger, and guys, this hand gave me so much trouble. Sorry, this finger in particular. I originally wanted to do the turtle melon bun, and I did make one. However, I hated the way it turned out. I don't know, I think it was just like the head and the legs looked out of place, and so I end up doing just like a standard melon bun with what looks like a matcha topping on it. So I'm starting with custom mixing some of the Cris clays to get the perfect green color that I wanted. I used the standard green, a little bit of the nudie pink to kind of like tone down the vibrancy of the green, some yellow and some white, and then just went to town with the mixing. You can do this with your fingers too, which is what I realized was probably easier than using the spatula. But she actually just released a group of pastel colored clays that I am so excited to get. They were just released last week though, so they did not arrive in time for me to put this video out, but I will be using those in an upcoming video because I absolutely love 3D. I love making my own charms and challenging myself, so keep an eye out for that. And huge thank you again to Crisania Neri. She took a chance on a small creator like myself, and she's given me a code to share with you all. So again, that is GETPRESSED for 10% off if you also would like to try out some of her clays. You can buy cheaper clays on like Temu and AliExpress, but I think what's special about hers is she has some interesting color options, especially in her newer collections. And she also makes like clear jelly clays, and I'm in a position to support small businesses, so I try to whenever possible. So now that I have my bun on the nail, I'm going to go in and use that Zemi art brush to add a little bit of shading around the edges. I wanted it to look nice and golden brown, like it was baked. And so I'm taking that brush and I'm just putting a little teeny tiny amount of paint on it by tapping the excess off on a palette, and then going in and stippling that color around the edges. I wanted this to look like it's come right out of the oven. In hindsight, I didn't really need to do this though, because the green part that I put on top ends up covering almost all of the shading that I've done, but that's okay. It is a technique that I had wanted to try, and I'm glad I learned from it. So now I am taking the green clay that I made and I am just tapping it over the bun, kind of flattening it out so it has an even thin layer over the top half. Then before I cure this, I am going in with my tweezers. You can use basically any sort of straight edge tool that you have. I'm using these tweezers because I actually want the edges to look a little roughed up. And I'm just making a line down the center and then making 2 more alongside that line. These buns, when they cook, they expand from the center out, and so you get this interesting kind of like crackled pattern based on where the surface, I believe, has been scored before baking. And so I'm just trying to emulate that here with these lines in the uncured gel. I'm flattening them as I go and straightening the lines, roughing up the edges until I'm happy with the overall shape. And this can be messy because the buns in real life are pretty rough and uneven, but once I have the lines the way I want them, I am going in with the yogurt matte top coat, and I'm just sealing everything in, covering that bun, covering the bun underneath as well, and then ensuring that I don't have too much excess gel in those little grooves by taking a liner brush and just pulling it through those grooves. And that is your finished melon bun. At this point, I was feeling like it looked a little plain with just the bun, and so I went in and I sculpted just some little like strawberry slices. Well, 1 strawberry slice and then a few banana slices. I definitely could have probably used like Fimo beads, but I was feeling ambitious and I wanted to paint some realistic little slices of fruits. So I'm just taking that white Cris clay and I am shaping the initial shape of the fruit slices before curing. And then for the strawberry, I mixed up the bright red color and the darker brown color from the MPA art palette to get the perfect sort of deep berry red. That's why I love this palette so much. It just is so easy to grab a few different colors and mix them for custom colors or use just one of them right out of the tin. And then to paint the details, I'm using my short liner from Diami. I love this thing. It is so small and you get great tiny details out of it. And I'm just painting around the edge of the strawberry. This would be the outside. And then I am feathering out that red color towards the middle. That will be the white part of the strawberry, and adding just a little bit of that dark red in the center. The butter color from the Yogo collection was actually the perfect banana yellow, so I just coated the banana slices with that, then went in with the dark brown from the MPA art palette and painted on the little seeds. I thinned out that same dark brown with that yellow color to create this light brown color that I use to make the segments of the banana slices. Bananas typically have 3 different segments. I know this because I was that kid that liked to play with my food and I would separate the bananas into the 3 segments when I was younger. But then I top coated them, cured them, and set them aside. For the 3D elements on the ring finger, I'm starting with the light pink from the Chris Clay collection. I wanted to make a cute little bottle of strawberry milk and use her new clear gel to make the glass bottle. So I'm starting with the milk, and so I mixed together the light pink, the pink nude, and some white to get a strawberry milk color. And I wanted this to be curved to fit flush with the nail, so I'm actually taking a nail form, the center portion of it, and I'm just going to stick that to a bottle with a curved lid that's about the same curvature as the nail, and I will sculpt the inside of the milk bottle on here to make sure that it's nice and curved. So once I have the shape that I'm happy with, I give that a full cure, and then I peel it off of the nail form, stick it on with some glue, and that way it's just a good way of shaping something before attaching it to the nail without disrupting the nail underneath. And then you don't have to ruin the surface like I had to do with the thumbnail. Now, I was super excited to use this new clear clay from Crisania because I love sculpting with clear. However, clear often is just a little bit stickier than some other colors when it comes to 3D gels. Yogo actually has their own clear clay. It's, I think it's just called 3D clear. And while I do really like it, it is the slightest bit sticky if you're working with it for too long. It also does self-level slightly because it is a thinner consistency. This one here, the Crisania clays, I really had virtually little trouble with sticking. There was one point where it stuck to my glove, but that's because I was really working the gel and it probably got too warm, remedied with just a little bit of rubbing alcohol. And so I'm taking that clear gel and I put a thin layer around the pink center that I made so that it looks like a pink liquid inside of a glass bottle. Doing the neck of the bottle here was honestly the most difficult part, trying to shape it. I honestly don't have much advice except for just continuing to work it until it's the shape you want. I was going for one of those rounded rectangle bottles, and so I made the neck, was happy with it, cured it, and then I went ahead and added the cap on top after I cured everything. And then once that was done, I could go in and paint the label. This time I'm using the liner brush number 1 from Sweetie Nail Supply. It's just a little bit bigger, so I was able to cover a slightly larger area. This is just the white painting gel from the MPA art palette, so I'm starting with that. The one downside of the Chris Clay is that it is actually so clear that you can see any sort of air bubbles or fuzzies that might have gotten trapped underneath. Unfortunately, there was one fuzzy that got trapped in the bottle around the neck area, and I just couldn't bring myself to ruin the shape and dig it out, so you might see it in some of the B-roll, some of the close-up footage, but I have to hand it to her. It is a really nice clear clay. And then I'm just using a blue from the art palette, and I'm painting an outline on the label and then going in and painting the word for strawberry in Japanese. This was again inspired by those little art pieces that I showed at the beginning during the inspiration portion, the little cartoon strawberry milk cartons. I love the aesthetic of those, so I tried to kind of recreate that here. Now, I do not speak Japanese, so I do apologize for probably butchering these letters, these characters, but I tried my best. I used Google to help me kind of get a picture of the characters a little bit better because they are very stylized in my Inspo pictures. So hopefully it's legible. And then I used that same dark red that I made earlier for the strawberry slices to just paint on a little miniature strawberry. And then I felt like the design needed to be even on both sides, so I added a cute little like pink star on the other side. I don't know, I was just trying to fill space at this point. I think this was probably 4 a.m. when I was filming this, 4 a.m. on Friday. It's now Sunday. I am currently doing the voiceover right before I upload this because once again, even though I took a break, I still fell behind on my upload schedule. I had planned on completing the set throughout the week, but with it taking me 12 hours of experimenting, it didn't happen. But I finally finished with the bottle, I painted the cap, and so I'm just taking that Mayo glass top coat and I am top coating everything, including the nail once again because I wanted just a nice seamless finish. The shape isn't exactly how I wanted it. I think I need to work on the bottle of the neck area. The bottom portion I think looks good. Honestly, I'm considering making like my own mold. We'll see though. And then for the pinky finger, I did want to do just like a little 3D pad of butter. And so I just took a teeny tiny amount of the crust clay. I placed it in the center of the toast and shaped it into a rounded square. I should have actually done this second. What I should have done first was matte top coat the toast. So I had to go in with the matte top coat and paint around the pad of butter, which was fine. It's just, it would have been easier to do this first. So I do that, I cure everything, and then I take that butter color from the collection and I just paint right over that little 3D element. I use a liner brush to get the edges and sort of pull some of that butter off to the sides to make it look kind of like it were melting, and overall I'm super happy with those results. And finally onto the finishing touches. I know this video was longer and that's because I was doing so many different elements, but I am now taking the Divock texture gel and I am putting that on my paint spatula and I'm just going to be adding that to the cupcake. I wanted the frosting to be slightly 3D, not fully 3D, but just a little bit raised. So I add that to where I drew in the frosting. And then I take a liner brush and add these swirl patterns. So I was trying to emulate kind of like the texture of the cupcake if it were actually iced and had like those nice frosting swirls on top. I forgot to record it, but after this first layer here, I did go in with a second layer to really amp up the 3D effect. And then I'm taking that same frosting gel and I'm just placing it around the melon bread so I can stick my little fruit slices into it. I thought it looked a little bit like whipped cream with some fruit and was pretty fitting for the theming of this set. So with the gel still uncured, I stick in those fruit slices. I did go back in and add a little bit more of the textured gel around the fruit slices just to make sure that they really stayed in there. And that nail was finished. I thought it came out really adorable. I also had an extra banana slice, and so I thought, why not put this on my pancake over the strawberry jam? So I take the Ivy Fix gel and I just glue it to the surface. I love this stuff, but I hate the tube because it gets messy. I've talked about this before, but I do recommend the Fix gel in the jar. And so I stick on the little banana, and at this point I felt like he looked lonely. So I did go back and I made a whole nother banana and I stuck that one on as well, cured everything once they were positioned the way I wanted. And then I sealed them in with a layer of top coat, avoiding the matte pancake underneath. And those are actually the last steps of this set. So here are the final results. I am really happy overall with how they turned out. I'll be honest, the night that I made them, I kind of hated them because I'd been working on them so long and so late. But when I woke up, I had a fresh perspective. So sometimes it is nice to just walk away from a project that you're working on and come back with a new viewpoint a little bit later, because now I think they're super cute. They definitely embody what I was trying to go for with this set. I know this was a longer video, but I really appreciate everyone watching who stuck around. If you are still here, go ahead and leave a comment with your favorite sweet treat. I think mine has to be probably any type of cake. I'm basic, I know, but I love a good layer cake especially. So yeah. Thank you again for being here. All of the items that I used for this design are going to be linked below. If you do end up recreating it, please tag me. I would love to see what you came up with. I also have a Discord where I sometimes post designs early, and people are welcome to share their own designs for feedback or for advice. That will be linked below as well. I appreciate everyone's patience with my recent kind of upload inconsistency. I'm hoping to have it all sorted by spring break, but I do have a huge project, which is swatching all of the Divock Seasons collection. It came in the mail last week and I haven't even gotten to touch it yet. So hopefully there will be a video next weekend, even if it is just the swatches. But until then, I hope you have a wonderful afternoon wherever you are, and I will see you next time. Bye!